Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to today's Wild Rift video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Spear of Shojin, one of the new items that came to Wild Rift in patch 5.0. I'm going to be talking about the item itself and what champions can use this item very well. Also, potentially a bug that might be in the game right now with Spear of Shojin. And then I'm going to be talking about the 3 best champions that you can use with Spear of Shojin to be able to carry every single game. First off, let's take a look at the item itself. Spear of Shojin is the item that grants you 300 maximum health, 50 attack damage, and 25 ability haste. These stats are very similar to an item like Black Cleaver, so this item will be really good on most AD bruisers, champions like Jax, Aatrox, Riven, etc., which I'll talk about a little bit later on. As for the passive though, it's a little bit different to how it works on PC League of Legends. In Wild Rift, the passive is called Dragon Awakening, which allows you to increase the ability haste of basic abilities, so your first ability, your second ability, and your third ability by 25% for 8 seconds after casting your ultimate. So every time you cast your ultimate, your basic abilities get reduced. You also get 30% bonus movement speed that decays over time, and scoring a takedown, which counts as a kill or an assist within 8 seconds of using your ultimate, refreshes the abilities cooldown as well. So you can keep reducing your basic abilities by 25% for more than 8 seconds and get the movement speed for more than 8 seconds if you're able to get a takedown. Now, this item works incredibly well for champions that like to use their ultimates really early on in a fight. A champion like Aatrox, for example, that likes to use his ultimate early on in a fight and then likes to dash in with his third ability, try and trap people with his second ability, and use his first ability a lot to try and deal a lot of damage. Now, there was a question in the community about a potential bug that might be in the game for Spear of Shojin, and it is a little bit strange. As you can see on screen, I'm going to show you 2 separate clips. One of them is going to be with Spear of Shojin, and one of them is going to be without Spear of Shojin. Both the clips show that I have a 10-second cooldown on my second ability. However, as you can see, the cooldown of the one with Spear of Shojin goes down quicker. So it seems to be more of a visual bug rather than an actual bug with the item. This means that the item is not bugged itself. You do get the extra ability haste with your basic abilities. It just won't show up straight away. When you use a basic ability, the cooldown will just go down quicker instead of the number itself starting off at a lower amount, which is really strange. But just to clarify, the item is not bugged and it still works completely fine. For the first champion I want to highlight with Spear of Shojin, let's talk about Riven. Riven is a champion that always wants to use her ultimate at the start of the fight. Since it has such a long duration, 12 seconds on her ultimate, and it also grants her bonus attack damage and increasing the range of her attacks and her abilities. So when you use your ultimate at the start of the fight with Spear of Shojin, if you're going to use your other abilities like dashing to get a shield with her third ability, trying to stun a champion with her second ability, all them basic abilities are going to go on a 25% less cooldown. With her first ability, she has a pretty low cooldown already when she's stacking up the 3 stacks of her first ability. But once the 3 stacks have finished, and as long as you do this within the 8 seconds, then you'll be able to get this back up quicker and use it again when you're next looking to engage. And also, the extra movement speed from the passive also benefits Riven so much when looking to try and close the gap towards enemy champions. And the stats are also great, allowing her to get maximum health, attack damage, ability haste. These are all stats that Riven loves. As for the rest of the build that you can see on screen, the boots kind of depends on the situation of the game. You can go defensive boots, armor, or magic resist boots. You can also go the boots of vampirism to get an extra bit of healing. That can also be great. Black Cleaver is a great item for Riven. Most of the time you want to auto attack in between using your abilities with her passive. So getting back Cleaver, reducing the enemy's armor is great. And in Spear of Shojin as a second item, these 2 items together, Black Cleaver and Spear of Shojin, gives you so much great stats and 2 great passives in general. Death's Defiance, this could be swapped out for a magic resist item if you feel like you need more magic resist, but Death's Defiance in general, just reducing the damage that you take, be really effective. Steric's Gauge for the extra lifeline passive shield when you drop low on health, and Guardian Angel to allow you to resurrect. As for the runes, Conqueror is a great rune for Riven. She uses her abilities and auto attacks a lot, and that's also the same with Brutal, allowing her to deal more damage with her auto attacks. Giant Slayer, the extra damage against tanks, especially in this tank meta right now, is great. And Legend Bloodline for that little bit of extra healing. Bone Plating is great since you're always going to be dashing in, trying to get to the enemy's backline and trying to deal as much damage as possible. And for the summer spells, we want to go aggressive with Riven, so Flash and Ignite are the best summoner spells to go for Riven, so we can have that early kill pressure and deal that little bit of extra damage. Another champion that uses Spirit Shojin incredibly well is Jax. Again, another champion, as I mentioned before, that likes to use his ultimate very early on. Now, Jax's ultimate is not that effective. You only get a little bit of extra armor and magic resistance, but most of the time you use this at the start of the fight before looking to try and jump in with his counter-strike, his third ability, and also his leap on his first ability. But using your ultimate at the start means that you can use these abilities more often, so you can jump more often with your leap, you can use your counter strike more often to dodge attacks and also stun enemies. But the big thing is reducing the cooldown on Jax's second ability, which allows him to deal an insane amount of increased damage overall, and that's the main reason why Spirit Shojin can be so strong on Jax. Again, the stats of Spirit Shojin are incredible. The extra health, attack damage, and ability haste are all great for Jax, whether he wants to look to split push to try and win the 1v1s or even join team fights. Spirit Shojin really comes online when Jax wants to join team fights, using his other basic abilities to be more effective when he's leap jumping in, and when he's using his third ability, makes it extremely difficult to play against. As for the rest of the build, for the boots, you can either go for armor boots or magic resist boots. Divine Sunderer is still an incredible item for Jax because he likes to use the Sheen passive to deal extra damage, especially with his second ability. Riftmaker, if you're in combat for a long amount of time, getting the extra 2 damage, but also the healing from Riftmaker really becomes super effective for Jax. Spirit Shojin as a third item, you could probably try and build this as a second item or even delay it as a fourth item, depending on the situation of the game, because you might want to build items like Blade of the Ruin King a little bit earlier if you're against a tank in the Baron lane. But then your last item, an item like Twin Guard, is a great item, just gives you a lot of resistances, a lot of tankiness, and a lot of survivability. As for the ruse, Grasp Beyond Dying to allow you to trade during the laning phase and also gain that little bit of extra health. The on-hit damage as well, and the healing works great in effectiveness with Divine Sunderer. Brutal for the extra auto attack damage, Giant Slayer dealing more damage against tanks, and Legend Alacrity for the extra attack speed. We don't really need to go for Bloodline since we already have a bunch of healing with both Blade of the Ruin King and also Riftmaker. And for the secondary rune, Bone Plating, this could be swapped out for Second Wind if you feel like you need it against a lot of poke. And for the summer spells, Flash and Ignite again, because we want to play super aggressive with Jax and try and win in the 1v1s. Last but by no means least, let's talk about, in my opinion, the best champion for Spirit of Shojin, and that is Renekton. Renekton is an incredibly aggressive Baron lane champion that wants a lot of early game power. And with the likes of Spirit Shojin, Black Cleaver, and Blade of the Ruin King, and the way that his ultimate works, just synergizes incredibly well with Spirit Shojin. With Renekton's ultimate, you gain a little bit of health, but the big thing is that you gain Fury. And Fury is from his passive. So every time that Renekton gains Fury, if that Fury bar goes over half or even goes up to maximum, he can allow 1, maybe even 2 of his basic abilities to become empowered, to be able to deal more damage, to be able to shred more armor. And this is really where Renekton can be a huge carry for his team. And since we're using the ultimate again at the start of the fight with Spirit Shojin, these basic abilities are going to be reduced, and the movement speed benefits Renekton so much, so he doesn't really need to use potentially his second dash on his third ability. He can save that to try and escape, or to try and dash even further down the line if he's able to deal enough damage to that first carry that he hits. As for the rest of the build as well, I already mentioned it briefly. You got your boots again that you can build either armor boots or magic resist boots. Blade of the Ruin King, since we want to play really aggressive with Renekton, and since we do have Kraken Slayer as a very aggressive rune, Blade of the Ruin King is great, especially in this type of meta where there's so many tanks. We have Black Cleaver as well and Spear of Shojin. Both these items are very, very similar. The reason why we built Black Cleaver before is that we want to try and reduce the enemy's armor very, very quickly so we can deal more damage with our other abilities and our auto attacks. Then we build Spear of Shojin straight afterwards because it synergizes so well with Renekton and it just gives him some extra great stats. Sterex Gauge for the extra health and also the lifeline passive. And then Guardian Angel being able to resurrect, since we're going for a very squishy build. Renekton is not really more of a tank. He deals a lot more damage, but he does have very, very low health. So we need to have the Guardian Angel in there to be able to resurrect and potentially come back alive. Now, the synergy with Kraken Slayer with Renekton, especially the empowered version of his second ability, he can slash 3 times within about 1 second, proccing Kraken Slayer straight away. And this is also why the synergy with Spear of Shojin and also his basic abilities just works so well. If he's able to use his second ability twice in a team fight to be able to stun and also get to Kraken Slayer earlier, means he's going to deal a lot of extra burst damage. Brutal in there as well, again for the auto attack damage. Giant Slayer dealing more damage against the tanks. Legend Alacrity for the attack speed. And the secondary rune being Bone Plating. Again, it could be swapped out for Second Wind if needed, with our summoner spells being Flash and Ignite. And that is it for the item Spear of Shojin. There's quite a lot to take in with Spear of Shojin. It doesn't work well with all the AD bruisers, since some AD bruisers have very low cooldowns. Champions like Hecarim, for example, doesn't really work too well with Spear of Shojin, since his abilities already have low cooldown. But the big things to take away for Spear of Shojin is making sure you build it on AD bruisers that want to use their ultimates early on. And with Spear of Shojin, you normally want to build it as a second or third item, sometimes even a fourth item. This is when you have a few points in your ultimate, you'll be able to use your ultimate more often, and there's a lot more team fights happening. This is really where the benefits come in for Spear of Shojin. If you build it as a first item, you're not going to be able to use your ultimate as often. The stats are not going to be that powerful in the early game, so you want to make sure that you leave it until a little bit later on down the line when it really matters in them big team fights. Titanic Hydra is the next item I will be covering in this little mini series that I'm doing, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. And as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next wild video. Peace.